Introduction. In a world where love and betrayal often intertwine in unexpected ways, emerges a story of personal triumph and transformation. After enduring the toughest battle of her life alongside her husband, a wife is faced with a devastating truth. He left her as soon as he recovered from cancer, disregarding all the dedication and sacrifices she had made. But instead of succumbing to despair, she decides to turn this ingratitude into a journey of self-discovery. With renewed inner strength and a meticulously planned strategy, she embarks on a path of revenge that not only exposes her husband's weaknesses, but also reveals the power of resilience and self-love. This is a story about how pain can be the seed of a new life, and how the pursuit of justice can lead to a victory far greater than anyone could have imagined. Amid a daily life overflowing with love and companionship, the couple saw themselves as indestructible. Their days were marked by small shared joys, like breakfast together, accompanied by light-hearted conversations about the future. But life has its ways, doesn't it? Just when everything seemed to be going well, it brought a challenge no one expects: a devastating cancer diagnosis. The news, which fell like a bombshell, transformed their peaceful routine into a marathon of hospital visits, consultations, and exhausting treatments. And the wife, instead of succumbing to despair, clung to the love she felt for him and became the fortress her husband so desperately needed. As the cancer progressed, it seemed like the world around the couple shrank. Their lives now revolved around therapies, medications, and tests. The wife, who once cared about the smallest details of the house, now devoted every second of her day to caring for her husband. Her love manifested in silent gestures, like holding his hand during the toughest moments and staying by his side when the nights were long and lonely. Every sacrifice was made with the certainty that love, that powerful emotion, would be enough to overcome any obstacle, no matter how difficult. But life, my friend, doesn't always follow the script we imagine. And although the wife had put her own life on hold, she did so with one purpose: to see him well, healthy again. There was nothing she wouldn't do for him, and her sacrifice was living proof that true love knows no bounds. Each new day, she believed that her dedication, even though exhausting, would bring back the man she loved so dearly. And so, with her heart full of hope and eyes fixed on an uncertain future, she moved forward, unaware that the real challenges were just beginning. The battle that followed was harsh, relentless, and filled with moments of extreme uncertainty. Each new treatment felt like a step in an endless marathon, where physical and emotional exhaustion took over both of them. Still, the wife remained steadfast, driven by the love she felt and the hope for a better future. She became the rock on which her husband leaned during the toughest days, when the pain was intense and the urge to give up crept in. Her dedication was so deep that anyone observing could see that this love was capable of conquering even the most ruthless of diseases. The nights were the hardest. While her husband, weakened by the treatment, struggled to find strength, the wife spent hours by his side, holding his hand and whispering words of comfort. She knew that despite all the suffering, she couldn't let him lose hope. It was her unconditional love that kept the flame of perseverance burning, turning every small progress into a victory. Every moment together, even under the most challenging circumstances, was a living testament to the power of love and the determination to win, no matter the odds. Life had become a series of identical days, where the treatment regimen dictated the pace. But amidst all this chaos, there was a strength growing within her, the certainty that the sacrifice would be worth it. The wife saw her husband fighting, and that fueled her own determination to keep going. Even when strength seemed to wane, she found ways to rise again, knowing that he needed her. Each day overcome was a silent victory, and she believed, from the depths of her heart, that this nightmare would end, and together, they would emerge victorious from this battle. Finally, after months of struggle and suffering, the long-awaited moment arrived. Her husband began to show signs of recovery. The joy this brought was indescribable, like a massive weight being lifted off the wife's shoulders. However, instead of finding the relief and gratitude she expected, she began to notice something strange. The man she had fought so intensely for now seemed distant. Small gestures of affection that were once natural became scarce, and what used to be a look of love had turned into coldness and indifference. This change in behavior left her deeply confused. How could someone who had received so much love and dedication act with such ingratitude? The wife wondered what could have caused this transformation, but no answers came. On the contrary, the distance only grew, and with it, the pain of realizing that the man she had sacrificed so much for was no longer the same. This new reality made her reflect on what could be happening, and each day it became harder to endure the coldness with which he treated her. What was once an unbreakable bond began to disintegrate, and the wife felt it in every gesture, in every unspoken word. The love she carried in her heart was now mixed with a bitter sense of betrayal. The man who had promised to face everything by her side now seemed like a complete stranger. And as she struggled to understand this new dynamic, the certainty that something was terribly wrong began to solidify in her mind. What was once hope now gave way to a painful reality that she could barely bear. The final blow came abruptly and cruelly. Her husband, now recovered and distant, announced that he wanted to follow a new path, one that did not include the woman who had stood by him through every difficult moment. The wife, stunned, heard the words as if they were knives slicing through her heart. The man who had once promised to be by her side in sickness and in health now left her without any regard for what they had been through together. The betrayal she felt was deep, as if all the love and sacrifice she had given had been in vain. The separation was swift and painful. He left home, abandoning not just the woman who loved him, but also all the promises and dreams they had once shared. For the wife, the emptiness left by his departure was unbearable. She found herself alone, without the man who had been the center of her life for so long. The pain of being betrayed by someone she trusted blindly was overwhelming, and she didn't know how to move on. The world she knew had collapsed, and now only the bitter feeling that everything they had lived through together had been a lie remained. The betrayal was not just in his physical abandonment, but also in the breaking of trust, the destruction of everything they had built together. The wife found herself lost, not knowing how to rebuild her life after such a disappointment. The man who had once been her life companion was now the cause of her greatest pain. And as she tried to piece together her shattered heart, the reality that he was gone, without looking back, made her question if she had ever truly known the man she loved so much. The separation was an open wound that she didn't know how to heal. The pain that followed her husband's departure was deep and overwhelming. The wife, now alone, found herself consumed by his ingratitude. Everything she had done, all the sacrifice and dedication, seemed to have been discarded without the slightest consideration. She wondered how someone could be so insensitive, so ungrateful as to abandon the person who had given them so much. Every memory of the moments they shared now brought more pain than comfort, as everything seemed to have been in vain. The feeling of ingratitude gnawed at her soul, turning what was once love into a bitter mix of pain and anger. She wondered how the man she had fought so hard for could be so cold, so indifferent to what they had gone through together. Every day, the sense of abandonment and betrayal only grew, leading her to question the meaning of everything she had done. It was as if the sacrifice she had made for him was a worthless currency, and now she found herself lost, not knowing how to move forward. But the pain of ingratitude, though devastating, also began to awaken a new strength within her. She realized that despite everything, there was still something he couldn't take from her, her dignity. And it was this dignity that began to rise from the ashes, fueling a determination not to let her husband's ingratitude define the rest of her life. The pain she felt was real, but it was also the catalyst for a profound transformation that she didn't fully understand yet, but that was propelling her toward something greater. After a long period of pain and reflection, something began to change within her. The wife, who once saw herself merely as a victim of her husband's ingratitude, started to envision a new possibility, regaining control over her own life. The idea of revenge began to emerge, not as an act of hatred but as a form of justice, a way to make him feel a fraction of what she had felt. It was a way to free herself from the pain that consumed her, to transform weakness into strength. This decision was not made impulsively. On the contrary, it was the result of deep reflection on everything that had happened. The wife knew she could not continue living with the betrayal eating away at her spirit. She needed something to make her feel alive again, something to restore the power she felt she had lost. It was then that the idea of revenge, of taking justice into her own hands, began to take shape in her mind. It was not just about repaying what he had done, but about reclaiming her self-esteem and dignity. From that moment on, the wife began to plan. Every detail, every step was carefully considered, as she knew that revenge would only be meaningful if executed with precision. She did not want to simply cause pain but to provoke a deep reflection in her husband, so he would understand the extent of his ingratitude. This meticulous plan, which began to take shape in her mind, was more than just retaliation. It was a form of liberation, a means of finally breaking free from the chains of pain that bound her to the past. With the decision made, the wife delved into careful planning. She knew she could not act on impulse. Her revenge needed to be precise, surgical, striking her husband where he least expected it. To achieve this, she would use everything she knew about him, all the weaknesses he had revealed during the months of treatment. Every detail of their life together now became a piece in this complex plan she was assembling, and she devoted all her time and energy to ensure nothing went awry. She began to reconnect with the husband's old friends, those he had abandoned when he became ill. With sympathy and subtlety, she rebuilt these relationships, earning their trust and gathering valuable information. She knew these old friends would be crucial for executing the plan, as they could serve as the eyes and ears she needed to anticipate her husband's moves. With each conversation, each detail uncovered, she felt more prepared for what was to come. At the same time, the wife started cultivating a different public image, presenting herself as resilient and optimistic, as someone who had overcome a great adversity. She knew that when the plan was executed, she would need public opinion on her side. Building this new image was essential to ensure that when her husband realized what he had lost, he would be completely alone. The strategy was complex and demanding, but the wife was determined to see it through to the end. With all the elements in place, the wife decided it was time to act. She began by slowly undermining her husband's trust in his new social circles. Using the information she had gathered, she started spreading small rumors and insinuations that, although seemingly harmless, planted seeds of doubt and mistrust. She knew that he, now comfortable in his new life, would not notice what was happening until it was too late. Each move was calculated to maximize the impact, and the result was devastating. At the same time, she enlisted the network of friends and acquaintances she had rekindled to execute the most delicate part of the plan, reuniting her husband with those he had neglected during his illness. She knew that this forced reapproach would awaken a sense of guilt and vulnerability in him, making him question his choices. And that's exactly what happened. The husband, now confused and disoriented, began to realize that the people around him were not as trustworthy as he had thought, and that perhaps he had distanced himself from the only people who truly cared about him. The wife watched from afar, seeing how her meticulous plan began to unravel her husband's new life. He was losing everything he had built after the separation, and each loss was a direct blow to his ego. But her revenge was not yet complete. The final blow, the one that would seal his fate, was yet to come. And when it happened, it would be impossible for her husband not to realize the extent of the ingratitude he had shown to the only person who truly cared about him. The final blow was as precise as it was devastating. The wife, knowing her husband still had a weakness for their shared memories, arranged a meeting between them under the pretense of a friendly conversation. She chose a significant location, where they had shared happy moments, to amplify the emotional impact. During this conversation, she revealed everything she had discovered about the flaws in his new life, pointing out how each one was directly linked to his ingratitude and betrayal. She did not need harsh words. The raw truth and the facts she presented were enough to dismantle what was left of his pride. The final revelation was the most painful. While he had abandoned her to pursue a new life, she had secretly ensured that everything he had built was eroded, leaving him with nothing. The wife, now in full control of the situation, watched with calculated calm as he realized how much he had lost. Every word, every look of pain and regret he showed was, to her, a confirmation that her revenge was complete. The husband, now stripped of everything that gave him security, was alone, forced to confront the harsh reality of his choices. This final maneuver was not just to hurt him but to show that he had underestimated her strength. The wife had risen from the ashes of her own suffering, turning pain into power. And now, before the man who had abandoned her, she finally felt free. What he did next did not matter. For her, the victory was complete. She had turned ingratitude and betrayal into a lesson he would never forget. With the plan complete and the revenge carried out, the wife was finally able to look toward the future with a new perspective. What started as a need for justice had turned into a process of self-discovery and empowerment. She realized that while revenge had brought her a sense of closure, the true triumph was discovering that, even after everything, she was still capable of love and trust. The pain had passed, and in its place was a renewed strength and unwavering self-confidence. She understood that the true victory lay not in destroying her husband, but in reconstructing her own life. Revenge, although satisfying, was merely the catalyst for something much greater, her own transformation. The love she had once dedicated to him was now redirected towards herself, and it made her realize that, in the end, her husband's ingratitude had been a disguised gift. She now had the freedom to live a fulfilling life, free from the chains of the past, and with the certainty that she could always count on herself. The final reflection brought peace. The wife, once consumed by pain and the need for revenge, now saw herself as someone who had overcome adversity and emerged stronger. She knew that regardless of what the future held, she was ready to face any challenge. Life went on, and she was determined to live it fully, with renewed hope and purpose. The past, with all its pain and lessons, had fulfilled its role, and now she was ready to embrace the future with courage and determination. Throughout a journey marked by pain, determination, and transformation, the wife demonstrated that true strength lies in the ability to reinvent oneself in the face of adversity. Revenge, although initially motivated by the need for justice, became the means through which she rediscovered her own worth and power. In the end, the husband who abandoned her faced the consequences of his actions, but the greatest victory was hers, as through this experience she found a new perspective on life. Free from the chains of the past and strengthened by the process, she moves forward, ready to embrace the future with renewed courage and hope. Her story of revenge is not just about retribution, but about the transformation of a woman who, by confronting ingratitude, discovered that self-love is the most significant triumph of all.